Hello, you lovely listeners. I'm Amy. Welcome to the Really Good Conversations podcast, where we will delve into the minds of the business people we have met in the process of launching our first card game. We will be uncovering their secrets to success, their biggest mistakes, and sharing the key lessons they have picked up en route. So, if you're looking for an engaging chinwag mixed with business insights and a good pinch of fun, you're in the right place. Let's have a really good conversation. Welcome to the Really Good Conversations podcast. Today I am joined by Marcus Dimbleby, a former Royal Air Force officer turned corporate coach, trainer and consultant. After 20 years in the military, Marcus now helps businesses make smarter decisions faster. He brings military precision and critical thinking to the boardroom. Welcome to the podcast, Marcus.
Thank you, Amy. Wonderful to be here, and I'm looking forward to a really good conversation.
Me too. And I just love that we are connecting I'm sat in Sydney at the moment and you are in Cyprus.
And we're both northerners from the UK. I love that.
Exactly. So I do love how this podcast is bringing me together with people who are based all over the place.
That's awesome.
Can you tell us, before we get into some of the topics we're going to discuss about today, can you share with our listeners a little bit more about your background and what led you to a career in the military?
Yeah, sure. So like you said, I did 24 years in the military. I joined straight out of school. And how I got into that was going to air shows with my dad when I was 8 years old. I just remember going to Church Fenton, Linton-on-Ouse, airfields in the north where they had these annual air shows. And I went along with my dad. And I just remember standing there watching these. It was the Vulcan, the Phantoms, these big noisy jets coming over, screaming ahead, going into afterburner and shaking the earth. I'm just like, I want to do whatever it is to do with that. And that was it. I joined Air Cadets. That was my intent. There was no plan B. And I'm like, I'm leaving school. You had to be 17 and a half to join as an officer. So I finished my, back then, O-levels at 16. I had to wait. So I just went to sixth form, bummed around sixth form. I had what I needed to get qualifications-wise. And then I left straight away and joined at 18. Packed my car up and drove off and never went back. So, yeah, my mum was like, what if you don't pass? I'm like, Mum, there is no option. It was like Arnold Schwarzenegger, there is no plan B. I have to pass. And that was it. I was just determined to do that. And everyone knew I was going to do that from a very young age. So luckily, it all came off when I graduated. So, yeah. And 24 years later, there it was.
Did you go on to fly those jets?
No, it was weird because in the cadets, I got a flying scholarship. So I got to fly 30 hours solo and get your pilot's license at 17. I went to do the tests and I got 95% for pilot and I got 98% for fighter control, which was doing the air combat control. And then through the mail came the offer of come to Cranwell officer training, but as a fighter controller, because they were really short of fighter controllers at the time. So I thought, I want to be a pilot. Yeah. So I went through, I thought, I'm not going to rock the boat. I'll go through. And then I looked to branch change. And then when I finished my officer training, before I started fighter control training, I had a 4-month holding stint. So you wait on another location. And I got held on 74 Squadron. The photograph up here is me in Cyprus in 1989 with 74 Squadron, fast jets, flying Phantoms. So I had 4 months of these guys going, fighter controls are losers. Don't do that. Go pilot. So I'm like, okay, so my intent was to go and fail the fighter control course and then apply for pilot again. And I went and did the fighter control course and just loved it. I really enjoyed it. It was sort of a natural thing. And I thought, you know what? Stick with what I know. I'd have probably been dead if I'd have been a pilot. I probably would. I'll be the guy who just does something crazy and loses it. So, yeah, I'm quite happy with the path I went down. Yeah, so got to control lots of fast jets, fly in many of them, and just had a really great time, yeah.
Wow. God, that is fascinating because it's certainly not even, an industry or path that I know a whole lot about. So talk us through that as your military career was coming to an end. What motivated you to transition from military career into the corporate world? Yeah. And how did your initial experiences shape the approach to business consultancy?
So I think I got to 42. The options to stay in the Air Force weren't great. I.e. go away, spend a lot of time away from the family, and then the pay rise wasn't going to be worth 3 years worth of pain, and the job following that all became paperwork. So I left pensionable at that point as well, which was good, and still young enough to have another career. Didn't know what I wanted to do. I hit the button to resign with no plan B, no escape plan. So I spent 6 months looking at all different industries. I mean, literally supervisor at John Lewis, shop floor manager at Waitrose, head of security for Virgin Airways. I looked at every single sector because I thought, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. And eventually I met a senior risk officer at Morgan Stanley, really lovely guy, spent a lot of time with ex-military people, helping them sort of career advice. And he said, go for consulting. He said, get into consulting. It'll demilitarize you, give you lots of exposure to different things in the world. So I did that, wined and dined with 3 different consultancies and ended up going into Capgemini, where, again, I went in there with the intent of learning from all these different people, seeing different corporate, government, commercial opportunities, and just really understanding what's out there beyond the military. Because so many people leave the military, but they don't leave the military. I mean, I would say 90%. They all stay within the reserves, in defense consulting, contracting. Even if they go into consultancy, they go into the military arm of that consultancy, which I just didn't want to do that. I'd had enough. And I wanted to learn something different. I wanted to come into the rat race of the big bad world in London, because you are so cocooned. Like 20 plus years in the Air Force, I had no idea what actually went on in the public commercial world. So I wanted to get in there and immerse myself in it. So that's what I did. And consultancy was a great place to do that, working with, we had government contracts, financial services, into banking. So that was my de-greening, or my de-bluing, if you will, from the Air Force.
Wow. What surprised you the most when you started working in the corporate world?
I'll get stoned for this. How little people actually know what they're doing. I came into the city and I was thinking, right, this is how I normally run my world. I'll come in as something, I'll play quiet, I'll observe for a few months to just see what's going on, so I'm not barreling in there like an idiot. And within 2 weeks, I was having to intervene. I'm like, all these people who you think should know what they're doing, most people are just winging it. They all fake it to make it. So you're like, hang on a minute. I'm coming in as the naive military guy who knows nothing. And a lot of these people are just making it up as they go along. And a lot of that, for me, came through a lack of training. There's this assumption that, right, you've got your degree, come in, do this, do that, off you go. But there's no structured training, which in the military, you get that from day one, that it's consistent throughout your career. And depending on your role and your rank, there's always some training compulsory and obviously training opportunities. So that was the biggest shock to me, that, do you know what? I'm actually not the wet behind the ears green guy here. There's a lot of people who are just making it up as they go along.
Yeah, that is so true. And I know when I went to university, I did what you called a sandwich course, so that you worked in industry for a year, which also was in London. And then you went back to your final degree, because I'd seen sort of the path that my cousins had come out of uni, which initially they couldn't get jobs because they didn't actually have any then experience.
There you go.
So great, you had a degree. So I remember having that thinking, going, right, if I'm going to, great, I'll get a degree, but I have to have some work experience, or otherwise I'm just going to be another person with a degree. But you're so right. You then get into companies, and, well, for me back then, there wasn't real, you're sort of shadowing people and just learning on the job, which often is just what you have to do. You get thrown in deep end. But like you're saying, in comparison to military, there's actually some real planned training happening.
Yeah. And what was nice about that, though, our boss at the time in the consultancy, the senior partner, very quickly, there's quite a few military guys came in, and he was one of those guys who was, I call them the wannabes. They wanted to be in the military, but for whatever reason, eyesight, medical, they couldn't. Yeah. But they've always had that respect and revere of, we love the military guys. So when we went in and worked for him, he was like, right, I know you guys are competent. So he'd load you up with the task, with the work, and very quickly you learned a lot more through doing that, and you got the responsibility, which was fantastic.
Yeah. So your business now, Effective Direction, and you talk a lot about principles of applied critical thinking. Can you explain a bit more about what that is and the cornerstones of that leadership training? Yeah,
sure. So applied critical thinking, it's something that we think we all do, but we don't. We all think a lot, but having thoughts doesn't mean you are critically thinking. So we base this on really 4 core principles. The first one is slowing down to think intentionally. And this comes from work by Dr. Daniel Kahneman, who talked about the brain has system 1 and system 2. System 1 is our default state, intuitive, instinctive, quick, and we think that 95% of the time. But it's highly error prone, especially in a sort of complex environment where there are many facets. System 2 is more what we should be and what we think we are: rational, logical, more effortful. Therefore, the brain doesn't like it. So what we see, if you slow down and take the time to be intentional in your thinking, you physically engage that system 2, then that allows you to start thinking more critically. And because we're all so busy, we don't take the time to do this. So we have to physically make that happen. So this is a behavioral change in the way you use your brain. So that's number one. Second is challenging our assumptions. Because of the speed we're moving at, it's easier to make assumptions rather than stop and think hard about, is that a fact? And obviously we're also impacted by cognitive biases, heuristics, fallacies. So all of these things are making us believe that, oh yeah, that's the answer. And what we do is challenge that thought. And sometimes you're right, but often you're not. And if you look at most strategies and plans, they are littered with assumptions. And when you challenge them, most of them are just wishful thinking. And the likelihood of them becoming fact is very low. So therefore, your plans are likely to fail. So that's number 2. Number 3 is engaging diverse perspectives. Now, we all talk about DE&I, and we're all seeing the chaos that's caused over the last few years. ACT, applied critical thinking, is actually what I believe to be the true enabler of DEI, because there's no point in having a diverse workforce if you don't have the effective inclusion to allow those people to be heard. So this allows all those voices in the organization to be heard. Everybody gets to speak up, and then you take action on that diverse perspective, which you've unlocked. That's the whole point of it. And then finally, it's making decisions based on what we call clarity, not comfort. That's it. ACT allows you to make better decisions. That's the whole premise behind this, because people make decisions fast, but they're often ill-informed, poor decisions. And then it means you're then refactoring problems downrange. So the whole concept of slowing down, allowing you to increase speed downrange, because in that process of slowing down, you've challenged assumptions, you've got more perspectives, and you can make a better decision going forward. So those are the 4 sort of principal cornerstone points we look at, and taking those into the world of work where everybody's busy, nobody's thinking, and it's all people driven. 85% of problems in any organization are common because they're related to people. And 70% of those problems are internal. So if you just focus on in people and internal, you're going to fix a lot of the problems your company is dealing with. It's crazy. So simple.
I was just going to say, it literally sounds like such common sense.
It is. That's the thing. Everyone says that. I call it facepalm coaching, because I'm teaching people this and you can see them going, I can't believe we're paying him. Are we paying you to teach? I feel like such an idiot. I know this. I'm like, I know you know it, but when do you apply it? When do you take the time to get people together and discuss these things? And like, yeah, you're right, we don't. That's the problem. Everyone's too busy.
Yeah. And I imagine even if, whether it's workshops or meetings get put in the diary internally, it's so common that people then get in the room and they haven't really got perhaps an agenda or a plan or what they're all there for, or what the intention is to get out of it. Let's not start on meetings, eh? Oh, the scourge of every organisation is the meeting. You know, we should write a Ladybird book on the meeting. You know, they're so badly run, and it's a real shame, because I think 33 to 65% of people's time, depending on who you are, is spent in meetings. And if you think 90% of those meetings are just ineffective and pointless, then that's a lot of time wasted for people. Absolutely. We touched on this when we chatted the other week, when I mentioned to you that my neighbour was in the military, and he often said that in his line of work, indecision kills. So whilst me and his wife were undecided where were we having dinner, he's like, oh, for God's sake, just get on and make a decision.
I know that not making a decision is a decision in itself, but not making that decision through lack of clarity, through not wishing to make a call and putting yourself in the firing line is not acceptable. You know, especially when you're looking at these leaders who are getting paid a lot of money to make the big decisions. Yeah. Why are you not using the resources you have? You've got an amazing group of people working in your workplace. Why are you not, what we call saying, unleashing your people? Why are you not getting the feedback? Why are you not asking them the questions? And a lot of this is this fear factor of the imposter leader. They believe they have to be the ones making all the decisions. They believe that they have to make the call and, you know, don't challenge me. So that shift in leadership thinking is really what we're trying to push to help people. It's not what you do now and what you say when you're leading. It's how you now lead in today's complex world that's making all the difference. Yeah.
And I've seen also you talk about red teaming. What is red teaming?
Yeah. So red teaming is the deliberate application of applied critical thinking to a specific problem, plan, or strategy. So red teaming is an ex-military term, and it comes from the days of the Prussians, where think back to the boardroom, now on the battlefield for the military. You've got your big table with all the plans of the maps of what's going on the next day. So here's the enemy, here's our friendly forces. The enemy would be red.
Yeah.
You are blue. So what was the red forces doing? So we're going to red team our plan. So we're going to play the enemy and see what they would do if we move our tanks here or our soldiers here. So you bring that concept to business, and what you're doing is bringing deliberate challenge to either your business plan, strategy, a problem, a competitor. So we'll go into organizations and say, right, Marcus, we've got our 2026 strategy. Before we roll that out to 50,000 people globally, we'd like to red team it. So we go in and we help them, and we don't do it. We come in and facilitate them doing it because they're the best people to do it. We take it all apart, dissect it down to its most minutiae, and then we apply divergent and convergent thinking. So we go completely out of the wall with all different perspectives, challenge things. What about this? Have you considered that? That's an assumption. That will fail, and that will cause the plan to fail. Or you've not considered this competitive threat that's coming in, and then you start to converge back again to some real clear recommendations. And what we say is, because a lot of people are fearful of this when you do it, it's like, oh, you're going to kill my plan. No, we're not here to make a better plan. We're here to make your plan better. And when they get that, they're like, okay. So I say, roughly, if you put a plan, if me and you write a strategy today and roll it out tomorrow, it's got a 20% likelihood of success. If we red team that plan, or somebody else with us red teams it, and you bring in different perspectives to get that, scrutiny, it's going to have an 80% success rate. If you then hand that structured plan to someone else who's red team competent and ACT, it's going to have a 95% success rate, because as they're executing, they're applying this concept of thinking, adapting, iterating, and not just going rigidly with your plan that was doomed to fail. So that's what red teaming is. Super simple, very powerful, and quick. You can do this thing in half an hour to a week, depending on, the scale of the thing you're looking at. And we've done this on $5 billion projects down to, we're thinking of the competitive market. What should we do?
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. You've also co-authored a manual, Big Things Fast, which offers a bold approach to transformation when it comes to... perfect.
Here's what I prepared earlier. Yeah.
What are the key lessons leaders can take from it?
Right. So this is, as you said, this is a manual. So we worked with a chap called Jose Carrella a few years ago at Kimberly-Clark, and we went in, helped them upskill their people in this concept of applied critical thinking. A year later, he rang me up and said, Marcus, I'd like to write a book on this. I'd like to capture what we've done because it's worked really well. So what this isn't theory. This is field practice captured in a book. So it is actually a field manual. You go through it, you fill things out. There's lots of writing. Somebody came on a course yesterday and he said he had the book and he said, I think I've written more than the book in words. He said, because there's so much in there. So the sort of four things we focus on here is it's priority, not priorities. And what do I mean by that? When I go in organizations, I'll go, right, what's your priority here? And they go, right, Marcus, here's our 10 priorities. Great. Are they priority 1 through 10? No, all of them. I said, so none of them, right? So you don't have a priority. What you have to really focus on is monotasking. And that means having your work visible, having the backlog so we can all see it. But then as a leader, you have to be ruthless in your prioritization. And I mean ruthless. And that's what people struggle with. So really understand, and this goes back to the earlier conversation on ACT, if you have clarity and depth of understanding, then you can actually prioritize effectively rather than going, I'm not sure. And when I'm not sure, everything's a priority. And that's where nothing gets done. So that's it. Number one, focus on prioritization. Number two, diagnose slowly so you can execute efficiently. Everybody rushes into execution. You get a plan, right, let's go and dive in straight away. We know what we're doing. Rather than just taking that time. It's Einstein, isn't it? I've got an hour to solve a problem. I'll take 55 minutes thinking about it. Yeah. I've got an hour to cut down a tree. I'll spend half an hour sharpening the axe. So it's that, by all means, yes, have a bias for action, which is what we and our brains do. We want to dive in. But if you do the diagnostics effectively, and this is where what I call it, the art over the science comes in, then one of my mantras is slow down to speed up. If we slow down first, get everything squared away, understand what's required, everybody's on board, everybody's aligned, And then when we accelerate, we will accelerate and sustain a velocity rather than what we tend to see is we accelerate, then the wheels come off in 3 weeks because we've missed something.
Yeah.
And then that's going to cost you much more time.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Next one is growth requires skeptics and idealists. So if you want to grow, if you want to evolve, don't have your, I call them the Del Monte people. They like to say yes, or your people pleasers. Yeah, by all means, listen to them, but you need your skeptics, you need your critics, and you need your idealists and optimists. And that's where this diversity of thought, the fine balance between the two to allow you to really constructively critique the plan, but have, I call it realistic optimism. So you've got both perspectives. And then the final one is mindset and attitudes matter. This is really about why our mantra is people first always. If you enable that behavioral change in people, that shifts perspective, shifts their mindset, then what you're going to get is a real positive, clear outcome that people are going to drive towards because their mind's in the game.
Yeah.
Rather than go, oh, I'm just doing what I'm told. No. You've sold them into this and they're bought in. They're on the bus with you. They're believing where you're going. So get that mindset shift. And this is where change management is so hard. Everybody wants to change, but nobody physically wants to change.
Yeah.
You know, we all want the change to happen, but A, I don't want to do it. B, I certainly don't want to lead it. So way left with that. So that's what the book foundationally bases its principles on. And then it literally is a walk and talk through. There's loads of tools, techniques, things you fill out, workbooks. And it just helps really new leaders who are dropped into this world of managing people, managing budgets, delivering on time. They're like, and as I said, they've had no training to do this. That's the biggest revelation is these poor managers have no training. Just that, hey, Amy's really good at a job. Let's promote her and put her in charge of 50 people and a 5 billion budget. And Amy's like, I'm good at my job. I don't lead people. Teach me something, you know?
Yeah. Wow. Oh, that is so true. You mentioned there about organizations wanting to go through change.
Yeah.
But what are some of the most common blockers that you see hold organizations back when it comes to actually making changes?
I think there's a couple of things. What we call the status quo bias and longevity bias, i.e., let's just keep things as they are. You know, it's a crazy world out there. Let's maintain some stability within. And we've always done it this way and it's always worked. That's great when it worked. But today we all know how crazy and complex, you know, the world is. So we have to evolve. Someone said to me, if you want to stay on the ship and batten down the hatches and try and sail through the storm, when you come out the other side, there'll be nothing there. You know, you won't be the last man standing. He said, you'll be done. So it's not only that you have to survive in this complex world, you have to thrive and get through that. So I think that perspective, and that's where the mindset is like, we have to change. There's no staying as we are. And there's a myriad of companies you can see who've gone bust because of that mentality. So that's the first thing. And then, and this is the number one challenge to all effective change in business, is ineffective leadership and management, sadly. So again, following on from the first point, that mindset of most leaders at that level, and I call them SPOMs, stale, pale, old males, because sadly, that's what the majority still are. Until the dinosaurs retire or die, then, you know, you've got this younger generation of leaders coming up. But until then, you've still got this swath at the top who've got this mindset of, well, I got here because I behaved that way. And that's why we focus on what we call adaptive leadership, helping those individuals adapt their behaviors and their mindset to deal with the complexities. So that's the two things, and they're kind of interlinked. So the mindset of the old school leader and the old school mentality of let's just keep things as they are.
And when we think about leaders, they're under often a lot of pressure, those at the top level. How do you personally stay calm and focused, you know, under pressure and uncertainty?
Live by our own principles. So slow down to speed up. Obviously, my background helps. I remember in an organization and all hella broke loose. 30 people in the room, everyone's carnage, and I'm just sat there quietly like going, someone's like, dude, how come you're so calm? I'm like, dude, is anybody getting shot? Is anything about to blow up? I'm like, you know, I've controlled fighter aircraft in huge combat zones and stuff. This is not important. Calm down, everybody, relax. So I think it's that mindset of having real clarity of what is the situation here. Do we all need to be running around with our heads on fire? So just calm down. And even if you do, none of that helps. Always, even under fire, remain calm. So there's that. And then there's what I call I call helicopters and rabbit holes. Where do we need to be? And I like to get in the house. Everybody's just stop. Let's get in the helicopter. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Let's get in the helicopter and pull up to 5,000 feet. Now look back down. Are we seeing things holistically now? Because right now you are down the rabbit hole, your tunnel vision, and you're not seeing things. And now I'm sat back here watching you all around the board, frenzied, but I'm seeing things that you're not because I'm just reframing my perspective and my position. So those are the two key things. So really just keeping a cool head and gaining clarity and stepping back and taking the bigger picture is what I find. And that's what we teach leaders and executives.
And obviously your military experience, you've just given us some examples there, really. But, how has it shaped your leadership philosophy, especially when it comes to discipline, adaptability and strategic thinking?
That's a great question. How's it shaped my philosophy? I think I had a lot of it before I joined the military. But again, like I said, I was in Air Cadets. So I've had a very structured upbringing as a kid in Boy Scouts, in Air Cadets. And I thoroughly believe that's what's lacking for the juniors today in the world, is that these clubs, have been replaced by iPhones, iPads, and, all sorts of nonsense. And I think that helped me. And when we talk about this, it's lovely when you talk about the military, everyone thinks discipline, everything's shouty, sergeant major, get this done. It's not that. It teaches you self-discipline. And in the military, we say you've got to get yourself squared away, which means, you are on point. Because if you're not, what you don't do right impacts someone else. And it's always about the person left and right of you. So you get that instilled into you. So if I screw up today, I screw up, but I'm going to impact Amy on my left and Steve on my right. And that camaraderie and that sort of brother and sisterhood that we have makes you step up. So that's your discipline game. The adaptability piece is crucial because who knows what's going to happen. You all have a great plan and they say, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. So you go out there, right, here's the plan, and then you step out, boom, the plan changes. If you've not been trained to be adaptive, then you go to freeze and then you die or things go badly wrong. So that's been a real thing that I've found really essential bringing into the workplace to teach people is because people don't do this by default. They do freeze. They do think about themselves. There's a lot of very selfish behaviors going on. So it's just getting people to understand, and especially as a leader, the more you elevate up the chain of command, the less selfish and more focused on others you have to be. And in the military, and it's the same as I talk about now, people first always. You look after your people, everything else will happen by default. If you don't create the environment and the training and the care for your troops, for your workforce, then don't expect things to go as to plan, because when it does go wrong, they'll be struggling as well because you've not enabled them to do that.
So in some parts of the world, they do still have compulsory national service.
Yep.
From what you're talking about and what you've learned in your youth, would you champion that being something that we should all be doing?
I would. I think we should. In Cyprus, we do it here. I meet the kids out here and they all got 18. I think have to do 14 to 18 months. And, everyone I've talked to who's done it, they're like, it's great. It's made the man of me. It's made me disciplined. It's allowed me to get squared away. And especially today. But I think, I know the UK talked about it happening, but I think it's too late. They've left society to go too far down for kids to even be willing, let alone compulsory. You get riots once if you try to make it compulsory now. But I think bringing it more back into, as I talked about, cadets, Girl Guides, Scouts, Cubs, all of these smaller groups that are sadly in demise rather than growing for society. So I think that's where you shift the societal decline, if you will.
We touched on Cyprus and you recently moved there. What inspired that move and how has it influenced your work and mindset since you've been there?
Right. So what inspired it? So my military career inspired it. I was quite fortunate enough to travel a lot, see a lot of the parts of the world. And then obviously that led into holidays and traveling and doing very different holidays and seeing parts of the world. So we've always been really keen on that. And then my wife and I decided that once our youngest left school and we were an empty nest, we would then emigrate somewhere to enjoy, sunnier climes. That was planned to be literally last September, 2024, when our youngest was 18 and finished school and went off. Sadly, my wife got really bad long COVID back in the day. She was one of the patient zeros, I think, back in February 2020. So she was really ill. The doctor we had knew our plans to emigrate downrange. And he said, look, if you can do this sooner, then it'll be great. So we talked to our daughter, said, hey, how do you fancy doing sixth form in Cyprus? So we came out, had a look, and God bless her. She's like, I'm game. So she left all her friends, moved out to Cyprus, went to a new school, and just had the best 2 years she's ever had. So that's the sort of combination reason of why we came out here. And added to all that, so again, close to death moments, realization of how long we're on this planet for. What I've learned out here is, again, even more application of our principles of slowing down to speed up. The Cyprus life, they have a great phrase here, siga, siga, slowly, slowly. It's frustrating sometimes with the Mediterranean mentality, but in life in general, just taking a step back, enjoying what's around you, enjoying nature, going out early in the mornings, getting sunshine, and taking quality time with people to enjoy that time with them for many different reasons rather than just that commercial sell perspective. And as I said, when I'm here, obviously we do a lot of work online. I get to meet great people like you, but whether I'm flying from Larnaca or London around the globe to clients, it doesn't make any difference. It's not that far away from the UK. We've still got I see my kids more now than I did when I lived in the UK. I think it's because they want to come and see me and my wife. It's not that they want to come and use the pool and have a great time in the ocean and enjoy the sunshine. But who cares? It's great to see them anyway. So so that's why.
That's fantastic. I mean, you've really, just even chatting to you today, you've really got that go-getting personality. I mean, when you talk about even as a child watching the planes, you're like, that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to go after. So you've obviously got that almost innate in you. You are going to go out and get these things. Yeah. So that is awesome to hear. What advice would you then give to somebody who is leaving the military or making a big career shift?
Don't be scared. Certainly from the military aspect, the military puts fear into you that if you leave, or you're not going to get a big job, you're not going to get the pay you need, you're not going to get the support. They want you to stay in. So I remember when I left, I was on a course and a couple of guys on there were literally almost in tears. They were so fearful of what lay ahead. So A, don't be scared. B, do your homework. Plan. I took 6 months to really plan my departure, to understand. Don't dive into things, especially, you see a lot of people in the military, after 5 years, they've had 4 or 5 jobs. That's okay, but it can be very demoralizing for the individual because they just jump on the first thing that comes along rather than really do. And I think it's shifting now, certainly in the UK. The US has always been good, but this military covenant, the appreciation of what a veteran can bring to your company is now really come to the forefront. So you are worth a lot. Talking about all these things where you talk about, you're trained, you're disciplined, you're adaptive, you're capable, you're a leader. All of those skills are completely lacking in the commercial world. So if you're bringing that to a company, really have the confidence to sell yourself in there and don't jump on the first thing that you get offered because you think, it's matched my salary. There's much more better offers out there if you just take your time, but do your planning and get in there. And then once you're out there, throw yourself into it. Forget your background, right? Your rank means nothing. Whether you're a brigadier or a corporal, in the commercial world, nobody cares. They like your stories, but they don't want to hear about it all the time. And if you swagger in, they go, I used to be a brigadier in the army. And so what, mate? You don't know what you're doing in this field. So as I said, when I did, sit back, learn, observe, and then interject when you need to do. And if you're doing the big career move in the commercial world, again, just consider the options, have backups. What if we do a what if analysis? What if you don't get that? What if you get fired tomorrow? I've always made sure I've got multiple income sources because, especially as a consultant, if you lose a gig and you're out of work for 6 months, where's your money coming from? So a lot of people in these big jobs, and now we're seeing, fragility in the workplace. And I talk to people, if you get fired tomorrow or made redundant, what are you going to do? What's your backup plan? What skills have you got that are transferable? I've been here 25 years. I'm solid here. And then there's a big redundancy. What do they do? Kill all the old deadwood.
Yes.
So that's the sort of thing that we always encourage people to look at when we're doing coaching, and certainly with the executives who are always as well looking for the next job. They're sort of going, it's like the military, you do in 2 or 3 years, and then I'm on to my next job to learn something different or in a different sector. So take your time, plan, look at the bigger picture, and then proceed with caution, but with intent.
I love that. And the final thing I'm going to ask before we go on to our really good conversation card questions is, what's the one thing that military gets right about leadership that most businesses get wrong?
Easy. Training.
Yeah.
Training, and I'm talking quality training, individual training, team training from the outset. The minute I walked through the gates at 18 years old at RAF Cranwell, I am being trained to be a leader, to be a thinker, to be a follower, to be fit, to be a thinking combat operator. And then every job you go into, you get professional training. Every promotion you get promotion training to be competent in your next rank and level. I think by the time you sort of retire at whatever, 20 to 5 years, you've probably had 18 months plus. I mean, one thing, you go away for a year to do some higher level training. So at that point, you've probably had 18 months of actual training specific to you and your career. I spoke to an executive last year. He'd been in the business 35 years. And he was asking me about my background. And he just smirked. He said, I said, what are you laughing at? And he's like, mate, he said, I've probably had 3 weeks training in my whole career on specific, and that's so apparent.
Yeah.
Why you look at leaders today we talked about it earlier, just make them a leader for what? Because they're good at sales. And now you see imposter syndrome, you see burnout. Sadly, you see mental health and suicides on the rise in executives because this complex world is crazy. And if you're not trained how to lead, that's it. So to me, that's a big difference. So commercials out there, L&D officers, HR, CEO, train your people and bring in, and please don't do tick box online training. I despise that. And so do your people. Everywhere we go, how's the training here? Garbage. That's funny. Your L&D officer tells me you've got amazing content. No, we've got a lot of stuff online, but it's garbage. It's click box, ticker box.
Yeah. And more to try and watch or look at and cram in. And
overwhelming.
So it's more overwhelming. That is so fascinating to just hear your personal journey and a lot of just the insights that you've seen along the way in organizations and, what's going on behind the scenes. So I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you 3 questions from our Really Good Conversations pack of cards. Question number 1, what is the most remote place you have traveled to, and describe it?
That would have to be the Falkland Islands. So hopefully everyone knows where they are, but they are a small British colony off the southeast coast of Argentina in the southern Atlantic, not far from Antarctica. And I have done 2 deployments of 4 months at a time. And it's not that I'm based at the airfield, because as a fighter controller, we are based at the top of a mountain, accessible by helicopter only, where the radars are. So the highest point of the radar. So literally 25 blokes living in ISO containers in a barren wind. They used to call it 4 seasons in one day. It'd be beautiful sunshine. Then you'd have hailing, screaming wind, snow, wind, and then beautiful sunshine again. So a lot of fun, a lot of good bonding and camaraderie again. But stuck at the top of a mountain for 4 months, living with 25 guys in ISO containers with very little access other than random sheep and the other helicopter coming in. Yeah, so that's definitely the most remote place.
I bet you really miss it.
Yeah, can't wait to go back.
Question number 2. What do you think is the secret to a long and happy relationship?
Communication. Communication, conversation, which leads to connection. And me and my wife have all 3. And it's funny, when I met her, she said, my mum said to me when I was younger, when you meet somebody, yes, you've got all the attraction and the sexual attraction side of it. It said, ask yourself, am I going to be able to sit down with this individual in 10, 20, 30 years on the sofa and have a conversation and have something to talk about? And she's like, that's so true. And that's it now. And we always make sure that we communicate, however hard that might be, because same in the workplace. People don't talk about things. It bubbles up, and then boom, it explodes. And often it's irrecoverable. But if you just say, hey, I'm feeling this, or that thing you said earlier, I'm feeling icky because of that. Or what did you mean by that? Sorry, I misinterpreted that. So as long as you have that open communication and ability to do that, keep the conversations going and have really good conversations when you can, you're always going to have that connection.
Brilliant. And I bet you're full of stories from your career and everything you do. So, and question number 3, which is always a favourite, is if you came with a warning label, what would it be?
Highly infectious. Beware.
I'm thinking infectious in a positive way, though.
I'm not going to expand on that, but yeah, in a positive, yeah. And enthusiastic, momentum, yeah, zest for life. Yeah, that would be it. Highly infectious, beware.
Brilliant. I love that. And the final question that I like to ask all our guests is, if you could ask any person, dead or alive, a question, who would it be and what would you ask them?
I'm glad you preempted me on this one because I've got a load of them. So I really sat down and thought hard about this. And relative to what we do now, it would be Socrates, who's the great, if you will, the great granddaddy of critical thinking, the number one philosopher where all modern philosophy stems from, the father of the dialectic. And the whole premise behind Socrates was he was into methods of inquiry. The Socratic method it's called today. So he doesn't assert. So leaders listening, pay attention. He doesn't assert. He inquires. He asks better questions. Again, emphasizing on what we talk about as slowing down, challenging assumptions, and avoiding groupthink. So I would ask him, in a world flooded with noise and opinion, how would you help leaders recover the art of questioning to surface truth and drive wise action? That'd be my question to him, and hopefully give us a good answer.
Fantastic. Wow. Powerful. Yeah, that would be a brilliant question to get the answer to. Oh, thank you, Marcus, so much for your time today and everything that you've shared. Pleasure. I know we've almost scratched the surface, really. We could talk at length because we have already prior to scheduling this today. But how can our listeners, find out a bit more about you, your work? Where can they connect with you online?
Awesome. So Marcus Dimbleby. I've got an unusual name and there's only one of me, so you can find me on LinkedIn. EffectiveDirection.com. You can find our website there, and then Big Things Fast, bigthingsfast.com. And if you go to our website, Effective Direction, you can download a free copy. So
brilliant.
That's a freebie we give away for people to enjoy. So yeah, I'd love to hear from anybody.
That's fantastic. And I'll be sure to include the links in the show notes as well. So thank you so much for your time. And I will let you get on with your day in the beautiful Cyprus sunshine.
I know. And it is a lovely day out there. So looking forward to it. Thank you, Amy. Absolute pleasure to join you. And it was a really good conversation. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Be sure to check out the show notes for more information on today's guests. And if really good conversations are your thing, hit subscribe and join us next time for more business journeys, insights and banter.